Two influential women, one unforgettable confrontation. On Capitol Hill, tensions boiled over as Jasmine Crockett unleashed her fury while Karoline Leavitt remained calm and composed. It was a collision of personalities, raw intensity meeting calculated restraint. But who truly held the upper hand in this political storm? Let's unpack the moment that had the whole country watching. Before we dive in, make sure to drop a comment with where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another explosive story. Inside the hearing chamber, the atmosphere was nothing short of electric. Every seat was filled, the room buzzing with quiet anticipation. Cameras captured every glance and movement, as if the air itself was waiting to shatter from the pressure. At the heart of it all sat Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in U.S. history. Poised and unshaken, she embodied a sense of control that was impossible to ignore. Her attire, a stark black blazer, reflected her no-nonsense approach, while her focused eyes revealed the mind of someone who came prepared for battle. She sat alone at the witness table, no aides, no advisors, just a glass of water and the kind of self-assured presence that dared anyone to rattle her. That composure would soon be tested. Suddenly, the hearing room doors burst open. Enter Jasmine Crockett, the fierce congresswoman from Texas, her entrance as dramatic as a thunderclap. Dressed in a vivid red blouse, her expression was unreadable but intense. She didn't even glance at Leavitt. She didn't have to. The spotlight had already locked onto her. This was the showdown everyone had come to witness. Crockett wasn't there for performance. She arrived with purpose, to challenge, to provoke, to demand accountability from the White House. As the chairman of the House Oversight Committee struggled to maintain control, pounding his gavel for order, the room barely noticed. The real action had already begun. All eyes stayed fixed on the two women, symbols of two clashing ideologies. Leavitt stood for what she described as the raw, unfiltered right to speak freely. Crockett, meanwhile, brought the weight of a different urgency, the belief that misinformation, if left unchecked, was eroding the nation from within. The tension wasn't just political, it was palpable. It felt like something historic was unfolding, not in a textbook, but right there on live television. As the hearing officially commenced, it became immediately clear. This wouldn't be a respectful policy debate. It would be a head-on collision, a high-stakes brawl playing out in real time. Karoline Leavitt delivered her opening remarks with surgical precision. Her voice was steady, her message crisp. When she finished, the room went silent, as if everyone collectively paused to take in what they'd just heard. Her calm delivery sliced through the noise, each word calculated, cool, and sharp. Across the table, Jasmine Crockett's demeanor shifted. She leaned forward, her pen held midair, her eyes locked in like a prosecutor about to dismantle a case. Without waiting for formal procedure, Crockett grabbed the microphone. Her voice cut through the silence like thunder. Her expression hinted at fireworks to come. Wasting no time, she launched into a full-force assault. She accused the White House of turning a blind eye to the flood of falsehoods spreading unchecked on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. To Crockett, this wasn't just mismanagement, it was chaos disguised as free speech. She painted a grim landscape: families divided, communities destabilized, violence sparked by digital deception. Her words surged with emotion, building like a storm about to break. Pointing directly at Leavitt, her voice cracked like a whip, demanding answers, not requests, but outright indictments. The room held its breath, but Leavitt remained perfectly still. She didn't flinch. Karoline Leavitt faced Jasmine Crockett's explosive anger with the same steady calm that had carried her through high-pressure moments before. Her response was measured, her voice level and clear. "We don't run X. And we certainly don't control the public." Her words cut clean through the surrounding noise. But her calm wasn't just a tactic, it was armor. Crockett's heated energy slammed against it and fell away. The contrast between them couldn't have been more striking. Crockett blazed like a wildfire, chaotic and consuming. Leavitt remained unmoved, like ice buried deep beneath the flames. Frustration surged in Crockett. She slammed her hand on the table, shaking the microphones and scattering papers. The sound sent a ripple through the room. Gasping spectators leaned forward as the chairman hammered his gavel for order, but no one paid attention. Crockett's voice, trembling with fury, broke through the noise. "Don't pretend you're innocent." In that moment, the energy in the room shifted. Phones lit up, live comment sections erupted, Crockett's on fire, Leavitt's made of stone, as the spectacle unfolded across the country in real time. Sensing her opponent's emotions on the verge of boiling over, Leavitt leaned into the microphone. She spoke softly, but with the precision of a scalpel. "Maybe the problem isn't us," she said. "Maybe it's the people you say you're fighting for." The comment hit like a silent strike, subtle, but deadly. It wasn't loud, but it was a dare. Crockett's reaction was immediate. Her face flushed red. Her hands gripped the microphone so tightly it seemed she might break it. Her voice cracked with intensity. "You think you're clever, don't you? Sitting there smug while democracy burns?" Her stare was wild, her presence crackling with urgency. She unleashed a flood of accusations, people being deceived, acting out, storming institutions, threatening lives. "And you call that freedom?" Her anger wasn't for show, it was fierce, authentic, and deeply felt. Yet Leavitt remained unshaken. "Freedom's never neat," she answered calmly. "But what you're asking for isn't freedom. It's control." Then she paused, long enough for her words to settle like a weight across the room. Every camera tightened its focus, capturing the raw contrast, Crockett's blazing fury against Leavitt's unflinching chill. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It had become something larger, an eruption of political tension that blurred the line between ideology and identity. Crockett stood like a warrior for truth as she understood it, pounding the table, voice rising. Leavitt stood like a fortress, silent and precise, defending what she believed was principle. This wasn't just a clash of politics. It was personal. Elemental. Fire challenging ice. Emotion battling restraint. And it was all playing out in front of a divided nation starving for clarity. The chairman's gavel echoed uselessly. Crockett shouted above the din, "I'll scream until you take responsibility." But across the room, Leavitt didn't move. Her hands folded neatly, her gaze never wavering. She didn't have to raise her voice. Her silence did the talking. As the heated clash between Crockett and Karoline Leavitt unfolded, it didn't take long for the outside world to erupt with just as much intensity. Social media quickly became a battlefield, with both sides rallying support. On X, the hashtag Crockett vs. Leavitt shot to the top of the trending list within minutes. Clips of Crockett slamming her hand on the table and Leavitt's stone-cold stare were instantly edited, shared, and reimagined across the internet. One post praised Crockett as the voice of the people. Another countered, "Leavitt just owned Congress without even flinching." This wasn't just a political hearing anymore, it was a national spectacle, and Americans were picking sides. Inside MAGA message boards and conservative forums, Karoline Leavitt was being celebrated as the new face of the movement. "Steel spine, ice in her veins, that's our girl," one user posted. Others shared memes of her calmly sitting through Crockett's storm, captioned with lines like "When the fire blazes but the ice doesn't melt." Her supporters started calling her Trump's secret weapon, an unshakable force under pressure. On cable news, Fox commentators echoed that praise, calling Leavitt's performance a masterclass in poise. But Crockett wasn't without her defenders. Progressive voices across TikTok and Instagram flooded timelines with her emotional outbursts, calling her a fearless truth-teller taking on unchecked power. "She's not angry, she's exhausted, and so are we," read one viral post. Hashtags like #CrockettSpeaks and #FiredUpForTruth lit up the progressive digital space. On MSNBC, anchors highlighted her courage and the sheer emotion behind her confrontation, describing it as a powerful stand against systemic corruption. Newsrooms scrambled to cover every angle. Split screens on television showed Crockett's fierce expressions against Leavitt's icy stillness. "This isn't just about politics," one commentator said. "It's about culture, fire versus ice, rage versus restraint. And the country can't look away." Talk radio hosts dubbed it the showdown of the year. Late-night comedians were already crafting punchlines before the hearing even wrapped. Everyday Americans weighed in too. In Texas, Crockett's supporters gathered outside her district office with handmade signs saying, "Jasmine speaks for us." An older woman told a reporter, "She's fiery because she cares. That's what leadership looks like." Up in New Hampshire, Leavitt's home state, the mood was different. Locals watched her clips on loop over their morning coffee. One man smiled and said, "She's ice cold under pressure. That's exactly the kind of strength we need." And the internet wasn't done. TikTok and Instagram overflowed with memes, reenactments, and parody skits. One viral video featured two actors mimicking the moment, one banging the table like Crockett, the other sipping water coolly like Leavitt. It was clear this clash had struck a national nerve, and the story was just beginning. The comment sections erupted. Supporters of Crockett called her passion authentic and relatable, while Leavitt's defenders argued she'd won simply by keeping her composure. What had started as a congressional hearing had now evolved into something far bigger, a viral spectacle that transcended politics and became a defining pop culture moment. At the heart of it all was a nation divided, staring at two women who represented two starkly different versions of America. And across living rooms, phones, and feeds, millions of viewers were glued to the drama, watching not just a political exchange but a cultural flashpoint unfold in real time. As the final gavel strike echoed and the television lights dimmed, the storm only intensified beyond the walls of the hearing room. Karoline Leavitt, still composed and unreadable, exited like a commander walking away from battle, untouched, unfazed. Reporters swarmed for a quote, a reaction, anything. But she gave them nothing. Instead, she disappeared into a side office, quiet and away from the chaos. Inside, she was met by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who looked her in the eye and said, "You didn't just make it through, you own that room." For a brief moment, Leavitt exhaled, revealing the first crack in her icy exterior. But her resolve held firm. She hadn't stood there for Trump. She had stood for something deeper, the belief that freedom of speech, in all its messiness, must remain wild and unfiltered. Meanwhile, not far away, Jasmine Crockett wasn't celebrating. She slammed the door to her office, her aides trailing behind in silence. Her hands were still shaking, her voice frayed from the emotional strain. Frustration clung to her like a second skin. "I screamed, I pushed, but she never flinched," Crockett admitted, pacing the room like a thunderstorm bottled up inside four walls. But her staff stood firm beside her. One reminded her of what she had stirred across the country, that her fire had resonated far beyond the hearing. "You spoke for millions," one aide said. Crockett paused, her breath ragged, her expression hardening with resolve. The fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed, it had only shifted. "This fight isn't over," she said to herself, voice low and steady. "Not even close." Across the country, the division was unmistakable. In Texas, Jasmine Crockett's supporters gathered with handmade signs, chanting her name like a rallying cry. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, Karoline Leavitt's backers replayed her calm responses as if watching a highlight reel from a championship game. But behind the cheers and viral moments, a deeper truth lingered. This showdown wasn't just about two women facing off in Congress. It was about something much bigger. It was about all of us. At the core, it was a battle between freedom and control, between raw emotion and measured restraint. And somewhere in that divide, the soul of America feels caught in the balance. So, what can we take away from this clash of fire and ice? Jasmine Crockett, fueled by righteous anger, stood for truth and accountability. Karoline Leavitt, composed and unshaken, defended the principle of unrestricted free speech. Neither woman was entirely wrong. And neither was fully right. But together, they represented the larger conflict playing out across the nation. How do we protect free expression without letting misinformation run wild? How do we harness passion without losing control? Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you believe Crockett was the voice America needed in that moment? Or did Leavitt carry the day with her icy resolve? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you want to stay locked in for more political moments that shake the country, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next story.